Springs Community Board meeting. We have no speakers at this point, and we'll stop when we stop for afternoon tea. Health and safety, if an emergency, please leave either the front door or the back door, but congregate around the front of the building. Looks like we have no apologies today.
Oh, we do have an apology from Mari Black.
Okay, thank you.
Who is, it's only made funeral today.
Okay, any announced urgent business?
I have a message from, I'd like to do right at the very end.
Yeah. Any conflicts of interest today?
Just in terms of urgent business, I probably just want to make a comment about the candidates meeting that we had here. Also about an update to do with the rubbish, where Tom and I spoke to Sally Cracknell about what happens with the rubbish over Christmas, and also the Rotary people are going to be here and some work that they're going to do for that Tom has organised there. And also I did have a query about the financials with Jason, and he said that he would be happy to join the meeting at some point.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just go on to the minutes of our previous meeting. For matters of accuracy. Papers 4 and 5. 67.
Madam Chair, on page 7, right at the bottom, that last paragraph, there was actually a little bit more to that, and if I just pass these around, this is what I believe is said and needs to be added.
Michael?
Thank you.
So
Another one else?
One more.
Some more coming around.
So in the minute, it says, this discussed the visit of the new pavilion and whether this would include some indoor sports facilities to attract more high-level games to the district. And then I believe that what I passed around was the rest of the discussion. Members also discussed where the area of the proposed, whether it would be adequate to accommodate all the current activities and events on the domain, such as Motorfest, Banquet, etc. And board members expressed the importance of being included in the planning process for the Queen Mary site from the start, and would like to see a plan. That second part of the sentence there was what Tom raised, but I know I raised the first sentence, and I would like that to be included in the minutes, please. I just think it's making it.
Yeah.
Is that over and above what?
I do. We did discuss that.
We did discuss those.
Okay.
I'm still on accuracy at the moment.
We're still on accuracy, yeah. So pages 8 and 9. And 10 and 11. Okay, so going back to pages 4 and 5 on matters arising. 6 and 7. Yep.
The almost about the third paragraph on the end, it was mentioned that the existing domain will require a formal change of status from reserved to named above, which could be a lengthy process. What I wanted to raise about that was, have we got any idea how long that process may take? And when will we, bearing in mind that it is a lengthy process, when will we start undertaking that process so that we at least get it changed or get a decision on it as quickly as practical? Because the lengthy process to me would indicate 3, 4, 5 years. And I hope that the community board is not sitting here in 3, 4, 5 years still debating whether or not you can get the domain changed. Sorry, Hamish.
So there's a considerable amount that has to be done before we can contemplate looking at lifting reserve status. So we need to draft up our spatial plan. we need to consult with the community, because they might say, no, we don't want that reserve status lifted. So it's quite a bit of water to go under the bridge.
Yeah.
Before we, so you can't just jump in front of the community and start that process, you know. Well,
No, very close.
so, there's those steps to go through before we can look at it. We're not sure how long it will take. We're currently about 9 months into trying to get a reserve revocation in another place in the district, and it's not moving particularly quickly. So I expect it will take a couple of years to get through.
So the main question was, have we got any idea? So it's going at least a couple of years, but have we got any idea of when we might actually start that process?
Once we've figured out whether we've got community support to do that.
So the long-term plan consultation is not considered adequate.
No,
No, I think we need a fine and grained consultation with them and the residents about their views rather than the whole district's view of these things. So I think we need to get a fine and grained consultation in that.
yeah, that was my question. My concern is that there will be public consultation here for Hanmer people, because there was a bit of a mixed reaction to the long-term plan.
Well, there'll be engagement with the Hanmer people, consultation and formal meeting under the Act, and so whether we actually go into a formal consultation or whether we just engage with people and see what the feeling is.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is that you will have that informal consultation. It wouldn't necessarily be a public notified thing to lift that reserve
There's
status.
nothing consulting unless you notify the public.
Yeah.
Engaging.
So you
don't tell the
that-
public that you're doing that. So
I know, but you're probably going to get both, aren't you? Like, there's going to be some people that agree and some don't. So
but 100% of people turned up and said, no, we don't agree. You'd obviously be having a rethink.
yeah.
If it's 50-50, then that's a different situation.
Okay, so if it was like 50-50, 60-40, something in favour of lifting that reserve status, once you do go to the government, go through all that process, do they publicly notify it, was my question.
Not always. So
Under what circumstances?
I don't know what their criteria are. It seems very hard to come to grips with anything to do with them at the moment. But you know, but if we're done some informal engagement, we're at 60-40, that's probably going to drive us into doing an informal consultation. You know, if it's not clear cut, then we'll probably need to strengthen up the consultation. If we engage with people and universally people are in favour or against, then that's pretty clear cut. But when you start getting down 50-50 or 60-40 even on an informal basis, then it's beholden on us to do something a bit more formal.
So going back to what Tom was saying, when do you think you would start that informal consultation?
So we're developing a spatial plan, so it's something to consult on. Once that spatial plan's completed and we've got feedback from the community on that, we'll engage more about the domain and
sorry, you did, you were, I wasn't asking you to repeat that part, sorry, I was just wondering if you had a timeline on it.
I don't have a fun time.
Okay, thank you.
Is it necessary to develop that or cancel the reserve status in order to develop the area to provide funding for the rest of the Queen Mary?
No, so the each part will stand alone, but if we're not going to put the reserve status, then we'll have to consider what we're going to do with the horsepower competitive, what you should put that to. Yeah. Because we'll be looking for more of a commercial return out of that.
Rightio, moving on along. So we're going back to matters arising, pages 8 and 9.
In relation to the disc golf. I didn't see that on the action sheet. If it's not on the action sheet, it probably needs to go on the action sheet. I did have a bit of a discussion I think between Dan and myself, like emails, he did say that there had originally been, as well as the plan for,
Oh, yeah. So it is on the action sheet.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I've got it, fine, I'll bring it up then,
Yeah.
don't worry about it.
Thank you. It is 10 and 11. Okey doke. So you'd like to
Yeah,
know?
I would just like to, under the Rippingale Road footpath request,
Mhm.
it does state there that we learned vehicle traffic on Rippingale Road was minimal. I'm going to say that it's not.
Not minimal,
No,
no,
that's right.
definitely not minimal.
It's not busy, but it's certainly minimal. And it's more and more trucks going down there.
So through the chair, do you want that word changed?
Yes, please.
Yes,
To consistent. I mean, it is, it's quite,
Yeah.
for the two of us that live down that way, you can see there are cars going down there. And it's not Rickerton Road, but it's definitely a busy street for a residential street, yeah.
And it's increasing, the pedestrians are using that. Walking.
So, Madam Chair, I'll move those accepted with those changes, two lots of changes that were suggested there, one on page 7 and the other one to do with Rippingale Road on page 10.
So, sorry, Madam Chair, wasn't at the meeting, but would the officer use the word minimal? Was that in the officer?
I don't know, but that's what was recorded.
Because I would like to have you change something that's actually what reported to you. We dispute whether it is minimal or not, but if that's what's been reported to you, and it's what was accepted at the time, then
I've got a funny feeling that it was actually stated that it was minimal. That's my recall, and I don't want it to be because it's not the case. There's every chance that other people here did say that it wasn't minimal though, so perhaps that could be part of an addition to this.
you could say that if this is the case, that the officer noted that it was in their opinion.
In his view, yeah.
And so there's issues open for other people to say, well, in my opinion, it's not, but it was change something. This is.
Yeah, well, I'm loath to agree with what the officer said, but at the same time, I do think that it was said.
Okay, Dan?
Well, Madam Chair, I presented that report, and I don't remember. I wouldn't have used the words minimal. I'd have given you a little bit more matter of fact.
Good.
Probably.
Minimal coming out in there.
Yeah. Like I say, I don't think it would have been come from officers.
Okay.
Right. There's it. Okay,
I remember saying that it was a rural property with cattle on both sides of the road. So the expectation to have a footpath to me was a little bit unrealistic.
Yeah. I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
yes, I do too.
But you know, if a solution can be found, great.
So what are we going to do? Just remove that word minimal there, although traffic.
We're happy to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
So just that
consistent. I think consistent because it is consistent traffic around there. Okay. And every few minutes. Okay, so Alice, let's move that. Inaccurate, Michael second.
What's the amendment?
Favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right. Thanks, Rob. Fee waiver request. Not a fee waiver request.
need to check something.
For the latest production. In the law.
Okay.
Helen?
So the fee waiver, what's happened here is last year the Mary players paid their $500 annual fee, but they did not use the hall. They cancelled their bookings. So they assume that that fee will be carried across to this year. But this year they are only having the one performance. But because the fee waiver has been put through because there was not taking into account the fact that they'd paid the annual fee from last year and no assumption that it would be carried over. So if it is accepted that that fee from last year is carried over because they did not use the hall, then in that case, what they're asking for is to decline that $1,500 fee waiver for the use of the hall. I'm not quite sure why they got charged $1,500. Whether it was because, well, for this play, this time, they're only going to use 1 week. But yeah. Whereas what they are going to do is ask us to change their contract so that they can do more than 1 play a year, because at the moment the contract says 1 play a year. They're going to ask us to change the contract so that they can do more than 1 play, and next year they're booking in 2. And a play may go over 2 weeks, not 1 week of production. So they have said that they are happy to pay the $589 that Gail has mentioned here. They're happy to pay that for each production week. So if they do 4 weeks of production, they will pay $589 times 4.
Do we know where the 1,500 came from?
Well, I'm probably not certain about that. Why? All I know is that that was what they were told they were going to be paying. That was what they were given by, I believe Gail Boyce does that.
If I could ask, is the contract just on an annual basis, or is it carry on year after year?
It carries on year after year, but next time we do our fees and charges, we can't actually change the contract at the moment because the fees and charges are already set.
Yeah.
So we have to wait to change the contract. That is, if we're willing to. And really, I think it probably would reflect what the Mary players are doing a lot better if we did change the contract. But we have to wait until we do fees and charges next time to do so. So what they're basically asking here is that they pay, they had that $1,500 remitted because they paid last year, albeit their last year's fee was less than what it is this year because there was a 10% increase.
That's more than 10%.
Yes, I know. 589 is more, and Gail has just sent me a message saying, because I asked her where the 589 came from as opposed to 550, and she said that's what was recommended in the contract. So I'll just have to go.
But we still don't know why they're being charged 1,500 instead of 500.
Look, according to this paper, they'll get it all for 2 weeks, which will be covered by the 589. The second week we charge the daily rate, which is $236 per day.
$236 per day.
Yep, and then we clean fee on top of that, presumably. So that's the fee that I think you guys said.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know, because normally what their contract entails is that they.
Oh, that's the outside fee, the Hanmer community charitable use fee. Yeah, the Murray Players fee is $589.
Yeah.
Doesn't say for how long.
No.
That's what I've noticed. Just mentioned.
Exactly.
Community charitable use fee is only $71 per day.
And so because they've only used it for one production week, which is what this is all about, then basically they only owe $89 if we accept that the $500 fee that they didn't use last year is carried
basically.
as a credit for them. So I know
They're
it's,
taking about 3K per production, aren't they, in gate sales, door sales. So, I mean, I would have no problem with them having a bit of a discount because it's like the netball, it is a good thing for the community, it's great for the participants, it's great for the spectators. It's good to have that stuff happening in the hall.
The fees that are generated from this production, where do they go?
To Mary Arts Council.
yes, the Mary Arts Council.
All right.
Who use them for community projects, which you might know what that is, Tom, I don't.
Yeah, lots of different payments, plays to
Art classes.
classes to murals to sculptures in fact.
I know.
The reason for asking the question is that they are in fact generating funds from the production as opposed to the netball. They're doing anything.
Whereas
I'm concerned that this may become while they're very popular in what they produce every year, they are charging a fee in order for people to come along.
they are, but I mean, we already have a contract with them and the current fees and charges is only $550 a year. Well, at the moment, we've already agreed to that in the past. So I guess all I'm asking here is that we carry that fee forward from last year. And that that credit from last year and they just pay the difference.
Which is $89.
Which is $89.
Yeah.
Or just make it right.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it's not for us to be at this point negotiating fees and charges. That's not our job.
No.
yeah,
Just
so we,
Acknowledging a credit of $500 because they didn't do a production last year.
yeah.
Okay.
Batman.
Yeah, Chitty Bang Bang they did last year.
He said they didn't. Oh my God.
I'm just
Wasn't that
conscious.
last year? Definitely.
Well, yeah, second and I'll listen.
There is wear in here on the hall.
Yeah.
I know, but the time for us to argue that is when comes fees and charges come up again.
All right, we'll keep it in mind.
So indeed, if they didn't do a production last year, I would have no problem personally carrying their credit forward if that's agreeable with council officers. But, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, thinking how we can move this recommendation without the actual knowledge of what happened last year. Can we move a recommendation saying that if that credit is carried forward?
Let's do, that's a long time to talk about this, isn't it?
And if there is no credit to carry forward from last year, then they pay a fee of $589, which is what the contract says.
So we'd like to recommend that to Gail Boyce,
Yeah.
the council.
No, this is not a recommendation to Gal, this is your decision.
Yes.
Okay,
So-
but that's our recommendation. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, would you like to reword that then, Alice?
Okay.
And it will be minuted and that we make reference to it in future contracts.
It was in November, but I haven't got a year.
Yeah.
It was a year before.
That's what it felt
So I
like.
don't remember.
Okay, well, I'll move a recommendation that we waiver the $1,500 fee for this year, but that we ask Amiri players. Thank you. That we ask Amiri players to pay the difference between the $500 they paid last year and what the current fee is, which is $89. Yeah, $89. That just makes it right.
I'll second that. All in favour? Against? Carried, right. So page 15. With a fee waiver request from the Netball Club with their fundraising Twilight Tournament event. I have a question for this. Do they pay for the use of the courts every Saturday sports day? Alice, do you know?
No, I don't
I
know.
was wondering that.
I assume that courts are available for the public to use at any time that they like. That they just use it on a regular basis at a regular time and nothing else happens. And I think they could have done the same with this event on the assumption that there would be nobody else there using it between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I thought the netball paid a annual fee. I know that the tennis club and the netball clubs were supposed to pay an annual fee, but whether that is what's still currently happening, I don't know.
Should somebody refer to the fees and charges on this? Because it must be written down somewhere.
Yeah.
So can we ask Hamish if you can check that with the fees and charges to see whether that is covered?
Yeah, I agree that that's the normal situation that sporting groups pay a contribution towards the,
Okay.
but whether that's been happening, I don't know in this particular case.
Would Gail know that? Should we?
I'm just asking to.
Okay.
Lisa,
We'll just ask Gail if they're paying the annual contribution. That's,
go back to that.
yeah, we'll make that one when we know. Okay, 15. Okay, so this is a report from Josie by Dan. Sorry, I'll go to that one first.
That one here is,
Okay,
Sorry, what?
okay, so we're going to go to the, sorry. It's all right. I have got this.
technically stipulated.
Next thing will be late item, which is about the Emery Avenue courtesy crossing, which we have Dan's going to put for us. Dan.
Thank you. And yeah, so we got it into the agenda, but apologies, it didn't come out with the agenda. It's been I guess a bit of a fastball for us to deal with, given that we're trying to make sure that when we do our reseal program for the year, that we're causing as least disruption to Hanmer as possible. So nonetheless, what we have is a report here that's, I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but I'll just give you a quick overview. We are doing a reseal program this year around Hanmer, and we have identified that Muri Ave will be getting chip sealed, but particularly the southernmost courtesy crossing has failed. So we're going to come through and repair it so that we can get it right. So we've given you 3 options to do this. The first one is under the roading budget. Roading team will come through, excavate the pavers, dig down 300, fix up the base as they need to, and then chip seal it. So the curbing and the bollards and all of that suggests it's a courtesy crossing will remain, but it will become just a standard piece of looking road. Another option is to actually replace like for like. Now that carries quite a cost of 40,000, so that's 4 times more than just the standard chip seal. What we've also done, because in years gone by, I remember we have had conversations about a zebra crossing in Hanmer. So we have given you a price for the zebra crossing. So, and the price is 35,000. Now, this is largely it's a roading decision, but we are looking for your support and guidance on what's best for the village. But also, if you do want to do anything above that of the roading budget, then it will need to come from your local amenity account. Your local amenity account is already 131,000 in debt. But if you were to choose the zebra crossing, which is the least cost in terms of a different approach than what the roading team are proposing, then you do have 25,000 coming to you or this year for streetlights, and the large portion of that 35,000 is streetlights. So you will have 25,000 to do that piece of work. So that said, like I say, the roading team are trying to cause as least disruption as possible getting this done, but the low cost, low risk program where we would normally get some safety improvements, we didn't get any through this last 3-year funding round from NZTA, which is called the RLTP. So low cost, low risk money hasn't materialised this time round.
I suppose. Okay, round the table then, Michael, what do you think?
I prefer the 10,000 personally. But when I look at the zebra crossing, that also takes out parking as well, either side of it, which I don't, I would like to see that it doesn't become compromised in that respect by reducing the parking. So I don't think the zebra crossings are.
I don't think zebra crossings necessarily be,
Right.
if it was somewhere else, it'd be further down here, not at the south end.
Yeah.
So you're happy with the recommended option?
So the recommend, B wants to paint these lines on here because they're leaving the bollards in, is that correct? Can be chip seal the road, but white lines painted on the road.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't like the idea because it would actually slow it down before it hits the main area, the busiest area, downside feel that, that I don't think that many people actually adhere to the 30k speed limit. So down near the centre time. So I think that it would slow traffic down.
What would slow traffic down?
The zebra crossing.
Proper zebra crossing.
Zebra crossing would slow traffic down. I think also that people would see that that is a zebra crossing and the other crossings are not zebra crossings. So it might be a bit of education there as well, because an awful lot of people treat them like zebra crossings.
They do.
They do, because it's more
Okay.
So personally, I think it was a really good idea. I think it would have a positive effect on the
Even though it would cut out little car parks?
Yeah.
Well, we've got lots of investigations in the car parks at the moment, including the potential parking meters. So I think parking is probably something that we're looking at. And the triangle car park down there is getting busier and busier. So perhaps see more people using that. So
At busy times, it is being well used, definitely.
So at the end of the day, it strikes me that if it's either going to cost 10,000 or it's going to cost 35,000 with a 25,000 discount on the 25,000 run, so it's going to cost us 10,000 and the zebra crossing. So in my opinion, that 10,000 or 10,000, you get a decent system that will slow the traffic down. I would be for the zebra crossing personally.
Chris?
I'm not in favour of the zebra crossing, because if I was going to do a zebra crossing, I would put it with the most traffic.
Yeah.
It's smack in the middle of town, right in front of Four Square. That way you can see it. Down there, I'd probably redo it how it is. I mean, I went down and had a look at it before. It's just a little bit on each corner that's sunk a wee bit. And but yeah, can't understand why it's going to cost 40,000 to fix that. And considering in mind, I know it slows people down. You come into town, people slow down for it, as it is. I slow down for it. It gives a protection for people walking across, the limited number of people that use it compared to down further. So I'd probably If I mean, it's 35,000 to put a zebra crossing, and I wouldn't put one there. If you're gonna put one anywhere, I'll put it there, so then you've got to redo this anyhow.
Alice.
Okay, got a slightly different angle on it. Hanmer has spent a lot of money putting in these really nice paved crossings. And I just feel like this is kind of a backward step. I actually think that we should be putting, either patch it up now so that it's not a safety risk, or otherwise go ahead and spend the 40,000 and have the crossing done properly, as those are outside Montes. Because we're just going backwards otherwise. I think, you know, to put a chip seal crossing with some painted lines on it is just not the right thing to do for the entrance to Hanmer. It isn't going to necessarily slow people down that much either. And I think in terms of the amount of money, we have $10,000, which is coming, the cost of doing the chip seal, so that would come from council's roading budget. Then we have the 25,000 for the lighting, which we can appropriate to making it 35,000. Then we have $10,000, which, I mean, I guess given that we've been told here that it's a safety aspect, I would have liked to thought that perhaps we could claim some money from the safety budget if council has one. I see Hamish shakes his head. I mean, personally, I'd be prepared to increase $10,000 increase on that roading account that we have is not huge to actually keep us from going backwards and ending up with a very ordinary looking crossing when we've spent so much time and money over the years putting in these really nice paved crossings to make our main street look nicer. It's going to be a mishmash now if we do that. We're going to have ones that have painted crossings with chip seal. We're going to have another crossing which we still haven't been able to afford to raise yet, which is near the corner of Harrogate Street. And then we've got these other two here. And I actually think we should continue to make it look better, not go backwards.
So guys, this isn't a decision, so this is just feedback for Dan. Dan, that's quite a mixed bag.
And you're right, Madam Chair, that gives us very little direction to go on, all the four different views. So what I would say, just to what Alice was saying there, I think you've already consulted on 25,000 for streetlights. So unless you can draw some kind of linkage towards streetlights, I don't think that 25,000 is just free to use for another roading project. And like I say, unless it has some streetlight aspect to it. There is no safety budget. Like I said, the low cost, low risk money that we normally get we didn't get any on this 3-year funding round. So we don't have the opportunity to do this under the extra stuff under the roading budget.
So then going back to Chris's view on this, can we not, I don't know about putting chip seal up to the edge of the pavers, but could we not do, at the moment, it's got a patch of asphalt either side of the those pavers. Could we not just redo the asphalt either side of those pavers to keep this crossing going in the meantime?
When you say in the meantime, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, you did say that if we did something along those lines, that it would give us another 10 or 15 years. I think my recall is that these crossings have been in place for about 20 years plus anyway. So they've been there for quite some considerable time. So they have stood up pretty well.
I wouldn't support using 25 of lighting in this at all. quite a.
No, I can understand what Dan's saying there. I'm fine with that. I understand.
We all find that
Pardon?
that cuts down the options then.
It may cut down the options, but I was simply going back there to what Chris was saying, which is patch either side, like at the moment, if you look at the crossing, there is probably a metre or two of asphalt as opposed to chip seal either side of that crossing.
Yeah.
Could we not redo that rather than taking away those pavers?
Dan?
Madam Chair, one of the things that you'll see, if you look closely at the photo, you'll see where it's failing right if you're driving out of town on the left-hand side. So the pavers have stood up really well. So I make no bones about it that, that's a really good option for you if you do want to consider it, and it's proven to be a long term. But you can see slumping in those pavers where they've been there for so long. Water's pooling. That's what's actually coming onto that piece of asphalt and making the asphalt fail.
Yeah.
So what would happen is if we were to dig that, leave the pavers where they are, if we don't do anything to them and we replace the asphalt, then exactly the same thing will happen. So the pavers have got to be lifted, which is the large cost, which is because it's a slow going process. It's all manually lifted, and then it's manually placed back down again. So that's why that's such a high cost. Now, we haven't had that formally priced, but we have just done some work around the office, lifting and placing pavers. So we've got some good idea of what this is estimated from.
So then can I ask, it's not the whole lot of the pavers there that have slumped, it's only at the edge where the asphalt joins the pavers, so that first lot of square pavers, is that correct? That was my observation when I looked at it. So you wouldn't need to lift all of them, only that first sort of row of square pavers?
Well, and that might be right. I mean, I haven't actually been. This is Mitch, our roading engineer, that's been on site, and this is his report. But I guess I'm bowing down to his greater knowledge on this thing and saying that if you don't lift them all and get them all level again, then the problem is gonna reoccur.
Well, I just think we're going backwards. It's just backwards. We've spent so much money on these and trying to make Hanmer Avenue look nice.
Well,
And
Madam
for the
Chair,
sake of not being able to find the funding to actually replace these or even do it in the same manner that we've done the other ones outside Montes.
Maybe it's just not a suitable option.
They've been there for a very long time. They've actually stood up very, very well.
Dan?
Madam Chair, you do see that if you look at the report, you do have money still available from the Woodbank Road project. So if you choose to, you could look to divert some of that money.
That was 200,000, I think.
Okay, so that would well and truly cover it.
So if you wanted to, you could actually the whole intention of when we put the raised crossings in, you did that with some funding that was available to see how it operated, and with the intention that you would continue that down to the third one, if I remember rightly. So that was always your end game, was to put three in, at least three. And the Woodbank Road money, I think I've got it in the report. It does say 130,000, I think. 100, yeah. So the Woodbank Road project allocated for year 3 of the LTP has a budget circa 150,000. And when we did those raised crossings, it's probably a couple of years ago now. I seem to remember the price was 50,000 each.
Yes, it was.
And just recently, actually, we've had down at the State Highways maintenance contract come and ask us who designed them, because we thought we were probably in trouble. And when we told them, they said, "Oh, that's excellent, because can we borrow those designs because we want them." So they've stood up. They're really good.
That's extremely positive. Thank you, Dan. So I actually would like to see us use that money to put the proper crossings in. As Chris said, people come flying into town and they don't stop there, they just come flying through, and which has probably exacerbated the problem that we have. And from point of view of continuing them down the street and keeping our streetscape looking as nice as we had pictured it all those years ago, I would like to see that happen, please.
Michael.
What we're doing now is using a footpath money down Woodbank Road that we will no longer have. So the bigger priority we see by using that is it would be even more useful here than what it would be down there. Is that?
It would be. There's certainly a lot more foot traffic in this position.
I'm conscious that the amenity rate debt is in the 130 odd thousand, so I'd sooner like to not increase it more if it's possible.
I wouldn't like to increase it, but if we can use other money as has been suggested in this report and by Dan there, then I think we should.
Dan, can I clarify for me, please? This Woodbank, did you say that we have a surplus of $150,000 after we've put in the footpaths at Woodbank Road?
No, Madam Chair, what I'm saying is in year 3 of the long-term plan, you have money set aside to build a footpath. And if you remember, you've actually dipped into some of that in the past to do the entranceways on
That's
State
right.
Highway 7.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be nice to dip into that again. Footpaths and Woodbank Road are really important. Traffic goes really fast on Woodbank Road.
Traffic does go fast down Woodbank Road, but I think there is a lot more pressure on foot traffic in Emery Avenue. And to waste all that pavers and all the beautification that's been done in the past and go back to something that's chip seal and a few lines painted on the road, which is just going to be substandard compared to what we've got, I would just be really disappointed to see that happen.
Sorry, Dan.
Madam Chair, a number of years ago, probably when I was pretty early on in my tenure here, there was a small child hit by a car utilising one of the courtesy crossings, and one of the things, the desires that the board expressed at that time was that we put proper pedestrian crossings in some places in Hanmer Springs. So I'm just throwing that out there to remind you that that really happened, and that was a desire at the time, which we weren't able to meet because of the way that the courtesy crossing was designed. But there's an opportunity now, because when you put in a proper pedestrian crossing, you have to put in lighting. So so you can utilise the lighting money budget for the lighting component of the pedestrian crossing. So I'm just throwing that in there just as a reminder, rather than being a stating preference. But
So as the only board member that hasn't expressed an opinion yet, that would be my preference, as zebra crossing, because then it actually is going to slow people down. Because a lot of people slow down at the beginning of the village, but a lot of people don't, and they don't slow down till they're good halfway up Mary Avenue.
I really can't see, Madam Chair, the difference between a zebra crossing and a raised crossing, because both of them are going to slow down the traffic. And to keep our design of the avenue consistent and nice, given that we've spent this money in the past on the pavers and we're still paying for it, to keep the design consistent and to keep the avenue in looking smart instead of going backwards, I think having a raised crossing there would do exactly the same as a zebra crossing, and it would slow traffic down. I know we talked about having a zebra crossing, but we then came up with the idea, with Dan's help, of raising the crossings here in the centre of the village, and we were all happy to do that instead of having a zebra crossing. So I think the consistency of an improvement on what we've got, rather than going backwards to something else, would be far better.
I would argue that I don't think the raised crossings have worked terribly well in slowing people down. and to me, safety is more important than design.
They have slowed people down hugely in the village. They have. I drive up and down there all the time, and it has definitely slowed people down. And it would certainly slow them down when they come up the top of the rise there into the avenue.
I look at it, I would raise that and put it there, but I slow down for that one. And when you drive into town, most people slow down, so if you had to raise one, they're going to slow down. But if we're going to have both, and that would be fantastic for us, I would put the pedestrian crossing where the most people are year round. That in midwinter isn't used much, but in front of the 4 squares used all year. If we're going to put a pedestrian crossing, why don't we put it where the people are in town?
Tom?
I agree with you. I think there should be a pedestrian crossing outside 4 square. My fear is the sheer volume of pedestrians. Is that traffic isn't going to go through them.
Yeah.
That's the other problem.
Those intersections,
Yep.
Yeah.
it's going to be so complicated.
Well,
But we need to decide what we're going to do here first.
Yeah, I think so too.
I would put that into a raised one, and if we want to go at a pedestrian crossing down the line, let's look in front of the 4 square, see if it'd be feasible. I don't know if it would, I don't know enough about it, probably get expert advice on that, but that's where I put it, where the people are all year round.
Have we talked this one all around?
I think, sorry.
It's just that we're not considering what that extension is at this stage outside 4 square, are we?
No.
So we really need to address this report, obviously.
The other side of this as well, they're looking at extending the speed limit down the hill. But they're not going to reverse the 30 back a little bit further to Ford Hill. But they move that down and then the 50 all the way up, as much as they're going to set it up there, then it would be stopped. And it's going down 50 as well. It's not going to be that close. There's a lot of money for a pedestrian crossing. I don't mind. I'm against the zebra crossing. I don't think that's right down there. But I understand what you're trying to do, slow traffic down with it. Yes, Alice, I was here and lived through all the painfulness of having the road beautified for what was supposed to be 4 weeks, but ended up being like 3 months. And it would be a shame to see all that money go to waste before, you know, you've even paid it off. And it does beautify the main street, and it's a point of difference. As annoying as it is being courtesy crossings, it would be a shame to lose them. I would prefer this raised cobblestones compared to it.
You're saying you would prefer the race?
From a visitor's point of view, coming into this, I'm slowing it down, having it raised, keeping the cobblestones. To keep the beautification and all the effort that you guys have put through over the years of doing something like that.
Okay, so then it just comes down to the money. Doesn't it really?
Yeah.
Dan, the $40,000, that's for replacing like for like with the pavers. That's not putting a raised crossing in.
Oh, Madam Chair, no, it's not. So 2 years ago, like I say, they were 50,000 each. So if you were to make a recommendation today to take some of the Woodbank Road money, then you'd probably be making a recommendation either a value up to a number, or you just say that you want the same raised crossings and leave it up to us to go out to market and get the best rates we can.
Okay, can we have a quick look around the table just with that option on the table?
Thank you. I think the funding could come from the Woodbank Road footpath funds, given that there is 150. But that my preference is to have, if it was 50,000, to have a raise as with the others, that we go ahead and do that and take up the favours.
Stacey?
I'd like a raised paper crossing, courtesy crossing.
Like the one outside Monty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the one outside Montes?
Yeah, Karen on the same thing.
Tom?
in the fact that the temporary crossing isn't going to succeed, I would,
That was the race crossing.
the race crossing, yes.
And that's what you two.
Yeah,
I think it's a good option, because you'll see it coming out the other way, so I should have brought this up earlier. When you drive into town, you drive over that one, and you still slow down as we know it there, but when you hit the next one, should I better slow down more? You come across one here now that's automatically going to slow you down prior to coming to the others.
Yeah.
So I think that will slow you down some for that favour.
That's what I think.
okay, and I'm definitely in favour, but can I ask Dan, round about the 50,000 plus, the 10,000 of that would come from council because that's what it would cost for the cheapest option. Is that correct? So we would get 10,000 and then the rest would have to come from our Woodbank Road account.
I would expect that to be the case, yes.
Thank you.
One thing, Madam Chair, I'll just point out, it was a number of years ago now, so maybe not relevant today, but we used to get some potholing around that area, and I think it is Tussock Peak there, isn't it? We used to get complaints from the motel about the vehicles going over or going through those potholes. So I don't know if they're going to start to come back to the fore if you're then slowing vehicles down and they're going over the raised hump right by the motel. So like I say, we haven't heard about them in a long time, but just something for you to be aware of.
Oh, if they haven't heard about them in a long time, I don't know how we can. It's like if your uncle's your auntie or something, I don't know.
We need to get some resolution on this, Madam Chair.
Well, Madam Chair, I'll move that we actually do a raised crossing in that area that
We're recommending, we're not deciding.
okay, I'm sorry, recommending that we do a raised crossing in that area, that our preference would be to do a raised crossing in that area like the one outside Monteith. So retain the pavers and have a raised crossing. That
I think it needs to be in addition to that too, because we need to indicate where the funding is coming.
and yeah, I was just about to say that. And that, in addition to the $10,000 coming from council, that we use our Woodbank Road funding account
Up to
up to 50,000.
Okay, Dan?
But I'll just point out that you are actually now making a decision, so it's not a recommendation, it is your decision. The reason why it was a discussion paper, because we figured that you'd be falling all over yourselves to agree with us. So the fact that you've done this, that's fine. But instead of making a recommendation, as Alice has just said, you're actually deciding to do a raised crossing like the other two to be funded from the Woodbank Road project.
that's right.
Yeah, well, the additional funding on top of the $10,000 that council would be putting towards it. Yeah.
I was just trying to get some agreement
What about the
rather than a motion.
And Dan, we are reusing the existing paving slabs there, or pavers there.
I believe so, Tom. Yeah. I would. I see. No, absolutely no reason why you wouldn't.
No, absolutely, yeah. No, great.
That's our recommendation.
And that's separate of the motion.
Yeah, well, yeah,
That's our preference.
that's our preference.
No, it's your decision.
Okay,
Doesn't it like,
whichever way you want to take it.
Yeah, making a decision and it's better, and so you are making a decision.
okay,
Fine.
Could we also ask that sometime down the track, we investigate a further zebra or courtesy crossing cost from approximately 4 square to Rotary Reserve? Just to investigate that. That be okay, Dan?
It's absolutely. I mean, we can tell you that you can do it. So it's just up to you whether you decide to. We can wait for the resealing work all to be done, and then we can come back and have a conversation early in the neutral annuum about it.
Yeah, I think
Okay, well, if we're making a decision, then we have got a motion. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Michael, all in favour?
Right.
Right, against carried.
Thanks, guys.
You put a good case, Alice.
What else?
Okay, if we head back, okay?
Could I suggest that a crossing become an action point and so that we've got a record?
A zebra crossing. That, I think that we're asking for the traffic engineers to investigate whether or not a zebra crossing outside the four square would be a viable option for the future.
Yeah.
Or a courtesy crossing if appropriate,
Or a courtesy crossing, yeah.
but it is very close to the parking, the entrance to the car park and the junction.
Yeah.
And we may lose a few more parking spaces to put another crossing in, particularly lose four.
You lose 4 parking spaces and yeah, those courtesy crossings are pretty confusing for people. Okay, have we heard back from
Yes,
Gail?
Gail has just said they do not pay an annual fee.
They do not pay an annual fee.
No, so, I'm just wondering there about the fee. But on the other hand, nobody pays a fee for the use of the courts. People just come and go and use it, which is kind of bizarre.
There's a funny little honesty box, but most people don't know where it is and what it is.
Or look for it very hard either.
Very hard either. Well, see, that here in this Friends Bowling Club, we've got a big honesty box there, but then a lot of people donate. If they've got their cash, if not, they're online, it can work.
This is a principle thing, isn't it? You know, in principle, is it just community asset which we provide for the health of the community? Or is it a facility that a club uses that needs to be contributed towards somehow? So,
You see the number of people participating in netball throughout the whole village or throughout the whole area. I personally think that it's got to be encouraged because the clubs start from the very tiny ones and they obviously stay involved in the club. And so I think it's good for that. So I personally, but we should wait. I think that's it.
anybody else?
Yeah, I think it's, if you look at sports in Hanmer Springs, we want to keep them going, don't we?
Yeah.
And they, all of a sudden one will fail, and it might take 5 years to bring it back, but if you can offer a little incentive to keep it going, maybe we can keep these moving.
You're correct, Chris. 4 years ago, the netball club did just about fail. Yeah, we just about had no teams. So with Johnny's team, they had to pull together some primary school girls. But now we've got Kiwi Sports, we've actually got 5 teams this year. So it's growing, but we nearly lost it.
Yeah.
We don't have a rugby club, they can't play rugby up here.
Are you talking about Harden?
No, here.
Really?
Yeah. So they're struggling to get it going. They're trying to find a precedent at the moment of the netball club and things like that, but they want to keep it going.
I think we've got to help that too.
Yeah.
Oh, agreed. Yep, agreed.
We will agree that the fee is going to be waived. Okay.
Sorry, second there.
I'll just, yeah, so, we need a, Tom moved it, Stacey seconded it. Thank you.
And put the motion all in favour, all in favour.
Okay, so moving on to page 19, which is about the annual playground and maintenance update. Right. 19. Dan?
Madam Chair, I'll take this report as read. It's your standard report that you receive annually. Josie goes round and does quarterly inspections, and this is the result of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dan, we've had the equipment for the Chisholm Reserve update and upgrade to include the sensory items. We've had that stuff since February. It seems to be an inordinate amount of time to get it actually in place, bearing in mind that we're now nearly the end of September. So, you know, we've had the equipment for over 7 months. And just feels as though that delay is a little bit unreasonable.
Injury and wet ground conditions.
Madam Chair, point noted, I'll get an update. Yeah, I would have thought I'd expected to have seen it in by now. So I'll find out.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I'll move the information be received.
And I think we should thank the council. There's a lot of work going into these grounds. And I think we're very, very lucky. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Ben, I think it's well worthwhile.
Thank you.
And they're in, and they are in remarkably good condition considering how much they use.
Chocker full on fun weekends.
Oh, yeah.
Great to see all the families, in all of those places.
Yes.
Okay, so moving to page 23, Wire Bridge Fund.
Sorry, can I have a second of that information?
No.
Thank you. Wire Ferry Bridge Fund activity. So, yep. Well, trust everybody's read that.
Does this mean every time they accumulate close to 100,000, they do?
Was that Michael?
I seem to remember some years ago we got close to just over 90,000 and found some reasons to spend the money. And it looks like this is happening again.
Yeah, I felt disappointed that you've got this fund for the preservation of the bridge and what it looks like, and that what can I money on this?
So that's right.
And I just feel that is totally enough wrong.
Oh, I wouldn't mind hearing from Dan, particularly on page 25. Where did all this information come from? I'm not aware that it was in the original agreement, but yeah, just so, can we have a bit more background, please?
Well, in actual fact, Madam Chair, I don't know. This is something that Charlie's been working on. Jason may have an idea about the Wire Ferry Bridge in the agreement because it's been struck up, well, certainly before I turned up. I don't know if Jason's available. Yeah, here he comes.
Hello all. Yeah, I mean, I think Charlie's talked about it at the bottom of page 23 under the agreement that there is 60% of the fund does go for the preservation of the bridge, and that's what Waka Katahi have proposed. But it, you know, I was quite at pains to state it has to be for the preservation of the bridge, not just straight out maintenance, as was the case. I'm going to say 10 years ago, where perhaps say even longer, a previous council engineer just spent $90,000 to the NZTA in those days. Yeah, so it is provided for in the agreement. The 40% of the bungee jump royalties goes into the tourism fund. So that's the piece of those royalties that's actively used by the community board. We just keep this component to the side, and when there is a requirement to be called upon from NZTA, we certainly obliged to pay it. They are certainly doing the work. This report is just advising you that the work's going to get done, and the portion of the fund used for that purpose.
So Jason, on page 25 there, types of permissible activities, can you tell us where that comes from? Is it part of the original agreement? Because I wasn't aware of that.
I couldn't tell you whether the part of the original agreement. I've certainly provided that agreement in the past, and I can do so again. But I did say to Charlie that we just needed to make sure that what NZTA were proposing to do did did meet the requirements under the agreement for us to pass over the portion that they've requested.
So I spoke to Charlie before the meeting.
Ah.
Charlie has developed this to help provide guidance on the types of things that the money might be spent on, might not be spent on.
Yeah.
So the agreement, it's a very old agreement and particularly helpful on what constitutes, allowed work and work that they're doing, which Charlie details in here. Is better rock over concrete strengthening of both abutment towers, stabilise and ensure the integrity of the tower foundations, degradation of rock base that supports tower foundations is already occurred and will continue to be. But so the work is actually about doing the bridge, so the structure of the bridge itself and the pretty clearly puts in. My understanding is there's been got $1.5 million. And there's been 100,000 a day on the design works and so forth. So, I think that this is good use of the funds is meant to happen under the agreement.
I agree. I felt a bit pop until I actually read the list, and I thought, actually, that's great. That stuff needs to be done. It's a very important bridge and a special bridge to us, and it's very clearly put out there, not allowed. 4 points there, and yeah.
I was a little bit the same. I was like woo woo woo, and I'm not certain about this list. That's why I'm asking where it's coming from, because basically, if you read all of that, it's almost like everything you do to the bridge, including painting it and stuff like that, just general maintenance is actually what they're saying should be paid for. Whereas I understood that money was taken to preserve the structure of the bridge, and honestly, general maintenance to me of what you would normally do on a bridge shouldn't come into what we're paying out for. I don't know, what is the whole cost of the project, did you say that they are doing?
About $1.5 million.
So this is a very tiny amount of what they are spending on the bridge. And
when you think about
and I probably have to agree with what Hamish said, the structure, keeping our bridge, it is ideal to spend that money. It's a small amount to the million they're spending, or $1.5 million that they're spending. But I would like to see, I know I might have sent out the original agreement before, but I think that was before my time back on the board. I would like to see a copy of it sent out, and I probably would disagree a little bit about the permissible activities, because it just sounds like absolutely everything comes under that when it shouldn't.
When you think that there are quite a few communities up north with bridges that are missing due to weather events, it would be terrible if, like, the footings, which have been scoured out because of the river being up particularly high, that wasn't addressed as soon as, because without that bridge, we're not a really viable.
The funding that we provide is dependent on the bungee jumping continuing.
Yep, that way. That's right.
So what happens after that?
Well,
yeah.
Well, that's a part of money from somewhere.
I think what will happen after that is you'll get less consideration of the historical structure.
Yeah.
And so they might start replacing timber beams with some other material, etc.
Then
Well, I can see that with old bridges.
Madam Chair, I'll just add, Charlie's really astute when it comes to negotiating good outcomes for the district with NZTA. He's just negotiated a whole bunch around the district in terms of speed signs. So, he's pretty astute with this sort of stuff. So if that is the outcome of his conversations with NZTA, I am quite happy that he's done a good job for us. I would also add, it is the preservation of the Waiā Ferry Bridge, and whilst painting isn't considered structural, it is it's absolutely paramount to the integrity of that bridge. And given that nowadays to paint the bridge, you've actually got to get all sorts of environmental plans established, because you can't have paint falling into the river, you can't have flaking paint falling into the river, so there's a whole raft of work that goes on. So I would suggest that it's actually a pretty good outcome for us.
Yeah, I mean, I am happy with that we contribute that money towards the costs that this 1.5 million or whatever is going to cost. I'm happy that we contribute towards it. But so I'm happy, I'll say that the information be received, and as far as I'm concerned, well, as far as the board's concerned, I think it sounds like we're all happy with that to go ahead, but could we please have a copy of that original agreement?
Right.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I've just sent that through to the board, so you should receive it when you pick up your emails.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to correspondence items. Page 28.
Is that proposing a second in the
We didn't have a seconder. You seconded
was it?
See,
No, it's just an information being received. Yeah. So, yeah.
and Jason's email is.
Yeah. Okay. There are two letters that we have sent out. One on page 28 to Charlie Hutt regarding recommendations of speed reduction coming into the village. So I take that you've all read that. I'm happy with that.
Yep.
The second one. Sorry, okay. That was brilliant. Alice.
Yeah, just in relation to that, is probably about 0.5 kilometre, I think, to relocate that 50k sign to south of the animal park. So would that precipitate a change in where the state highway ends? Because as I understand it, the state highway ends where that 50 kilometre sign is. And would that be an issue for the council in terms of roading?
Mr. Court, let us say, and so we'd simply be making a recommendation to NZTA that they shift the 50k sign. They may or may not choose to do that. They do all their stuff very evidence-based, and you might find that there's not our volume to support that, but that's all we'd be doing. Certainly we wouldn't be suggesting that we take over that road.
Would it precipitate them coming back to the council? That was my question.
Oh, they're always very keen for us to.
Exactly.
And we then own a bridge. So they've suggested previously that the intersection with Argent's Road should be the end of the state highway as well. So and now that there's development at south end of the town, I'm sure they'll come back again and say,
Yeah. Once that happens, everything.
So that'll continue, but we're simply saying it's especially from the Hanmer Springs community that sign is that zone is shifted further out. They'll do with it what they will.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just concerned that it may precipitate that discussion or imposition.
Sure, they'll let us.
You'll handle it?
All right, the second item is from the Track Network Group. I just want to give, which I'm sure you've all read, and we've had numerous discussions and emails right around the globe, actually, with people about this. Can I just say that we've had a change in impetus in the Track Network Group because we've transitioned from having an immensely dynamic and capable person who's been driving trail developments, and that person has moved on, and it's got to the point where the people sitting around, the trail users, the people sitting around the working group have actually had to get a little bit real about budgets and what money is actually coming in. So that initiated some pretty frank discussions with the council officer in charge of the maintenance team and getting some very detailed feedback from the maintenance team about what the costs actually are to maintain our track network. So the track network is really important pillar to the tourism offering in the village. It's like the pools and the golf club and out the back and everything. But when we drilled down, we realised that a huge percentage of the budget that we have is actually required to maintain our existing trails. So we've put a moratorium on developing any new trails. We've allocated $10,000 a year for signage. We have a certain amount that's given to the track network by the council for materials, and $60,000 is required each year just to maintain the trails that we have to a good standard, a suitable standard, so that we aren't going to have accidents and people go away from the Hanmer track network saying that was a good experience. So then the rest of it I'll take as read. There was proposed to have a structure in the middle of the village green as a kind of a reference point, and then possibly to have more mountain bike maintenance gear tied to it. When we sat down and when the track network members sat down to discuss this, because this is the year that it's supposed to happen, everybody kind of shuffled their feet and said, oh, actually, don't think it's such a great idea after all. $60,000, that doesn't have to get spent. So we had very intense discussions about what actually does need to get spent and what are the issues. And the biggest issue really is for people to be able to find the hubs. Now we have 4 hubs: Jolly's Pass Road down by the old dock centre, Lucas Lane, which has actually become the most used hub, Brook Dawson Park, because that's where families enter, use Easy Rider, go to the ferry door walks and park there, and the Rogerson Track, which it's a multi-use hub. Most of the horse trails are there, but it's certainly somewhere that people need to find when they're driving into the village. So rather than having a structure in the middle of the village green, we decided that it would be better just to have some, I think, green finger pointing signs. One on the Jolly's Pass Road, Conical Hill intersection, one down Jack's Pass Road off of Mary Avenue, one on Medical Centre and one on Rogerson Track, and one at Bath Street pointing down to Brook Dawson, just saying Hanmer Springs Trail, which is going to cost significantly less. And on each of those hubs, one of the main reasons that the village hub was instigated was as a way to shut down blocks, to communicate shutting down blocks of the forest because of fire danger or wind events or whatever. We've found a way to do a very simple sign at the entrance of each of the hubs. It says this block from Jolly's Pass Road to Clarence Valley Road is closed. This is the list of the trails that you can't use. So we would have 4 of those little signs rather than one map in the middle of the village green, which people may or may not see. So, it's a U-turn, but
I mean, the track network group were quite clear about the change. It had been driven by one person and it didn't have the support of everybody else. And given that we're funding that, we've got $60,000 in our budget for it, for a big structure on the village green. The latest design for it is this structure, which has got concrete blocks and all sorts of things that really aren't even in our design standards for Hanmer. And it's going to be quite a big ugly structure in the middle of the green, and nobody wanted it. No one. So there's no point spending $60,000 on something that nobody wants. And they came up with a much better plan that will actually work in the areas where people need it to be.
Another of the issues, and this particularly one comment from you about this, Dan, was that the biggest three big parking areas, Jolly's Pass Road outside the old dock centre, Brook Dawson, Lucas Lane. Not so much the Rogerson Track because it's a huge area down there to park. But it was asked whether or not we would be able to create a gravel pull-in area for 6 cars at Brook Dawson and maybe 10 at the Lucas Lane trail hub for parking. Both of those areas are quite muddy in the winter, with people parking and unloading their mountain bikes. So we asked for a rough quote from Hanmer Contracting. They gave us a rough quote of $4,000 to do both of those areas. Is that permissible?
So this is potentially out of the 60,000.
Yeah.
Or
Well, with the
4,000, yeah.
Yeah.
Or possibly it could come from the track network budget itself.
Yeah, can I understand then that to put up these 4 entrance signs, can you tell us what was that 10,000 in total to do?
No. 10,000 is our annual budget for signs, and the signs, either the finger signs to point to this hub, that hub, or the actual sign at the hub itself saying these tracks are open or closed, would come out of that $10,000 budget.
Okay.
And that's the money that we already
Have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what the community board supports the track network group with.
So what happens to the funding that we've put aside for it?
Oh no, could do raise costs. I don't know. I think it was out of
Need to be the money you've got to save.
don't spend the money you've got a saving.
Or on the other hand, you could look at, because we did talk about it at the same time, in some enhancement of the village green area. I mean, personally, it's separate.
Let's not get
separate to this, but just as a little hint,
Yeah.
I would like to see at least a plan at this stage that might mirror what happens on the Lodge Reserve to happen on the village green, where there is some more paving and seating, making it a bit more usable, because it is pretty blank at this stage. So it's just,
Well, I've got nothing else. So if we're going to go to that effort, which I think is a great idea, the big signs that are all over the show, you've got big signs showing where your tracks and that are, the really big signs.
You mean our existing site
Existing signs.
at Woods?
Yeah.
That's they.
The trouble with some of those is when you do a map, it's got to be orientated north. So you face it north. If you can't then turn that map around and face south, because it won't work. Now, if you look at the one at the top of Conover Hill, faces east, which is pointless, because north's up that way. So it's facing the wrong way. I don't know how many times being walking the dog every day, I'll have people looking at the sign having no idea where they are. So I think if we're going to go through this, why don't we look at the signs so as we can get those right? Because if they're wrong, it confuses people. It's simple. And if you've got a north-facing sign facing that way, you wouldn't put the same sign, see what I mean, on the other side, right? You reverse it. And that puts it in perspective. So if you're walking down that path heading south, that's where it's supposed to go. And if you look at most of the ones that are up there are wrong. I hate to
So we did discuss maps, and maps get out of date quite quickly.
Yeah.
There was, and we have now come to simple, effective, uniform design for the track network, the blue and white. If we could keep it all to that, it would be really good and not have to do lots of maps. Because an arrow saying two Woodland Ponds or to Johnny's Bus Road or whatever, rather than a map saying you are here, because then it's got to be orientated.
But if it's orientated and you are here, you know which way to look.
Then what?
You know where you are. If you don't know where you are, you'll see people looking at a sign and going, I don't know where.
I don't have a problem with you are here signs for walkers because they're visitors.
Yeah.
When it comes to mountain bikers and horse riders and the like, they use the app, Trailforce. And so they know exactly where they are and they probably know exactly where they're going before they even come to Hanmer. So, but I don't have a problem with you are here signs, and that's something that, I'm sure fits in well with our budget. We don't, we have a moratorium on new tracks, finishing the ones that have started. The horse trails, for example, they've just purchased signage, which came in at half the cost expected for their entire trail network. And just waiting for the computer system to generate something to put them in.
Yeah, and the other thing, Matt, if you're going to do one of those, a new big one, look, send it around to about 30 people to have a look at, because somebody will find mistakes. And the more people that look at maps, the more mistakes will be clarified if you print them. And then you get them. And it does take that. You need a lot of people to look at things.
We've still got walking.
Yeah, I mean, my view is that you've got a QR code that link you to a map that can be kept live and up to date.
Yep.
The idea that you can print maps and have map boards, because they do get out of date, that's secret, and they do get out of date. So,
Everyone's got it. Yeah.
So QR code links you to an online map, have somebody that can update it and keep it live.
Yeah, that's
And when you do it on Google Maps, even better.
Yep.
Because then you don't need you are here, you've got a blue dot.
Yeah. You're here, you look up and you walk over the back and you got no phone coverage.
Yeah, yes.
You do actually these days.
Oh, not all the time over the back, Conifer Hill. It's easier, but no, that's right.
No, it's not over back to me.
No, that's.
Yeah.
So you might want to change that sign up there.
Yeah, I didn't even realise there was a sign up there actually. So that's really just so to keep everybody in the loop. And is Jason there? I think that 60K was coming out of our contestable fund.
Yes, it is.
The 60,000 that was going to be spent on this village hub was going to come out of the contestable fund, I think. Is that right?
No, it was just a key project out of your amenities account. The contestable fund was maintained mainly to allow for funding for a new sports pavilion or whatever in year 5. So it was a component of the capital expenditure project program for the 24-25 year. Yeah, if you choose not to spend it, it becomes a savings to your amenities account, so it comes off your debt.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, the first action on the action sheet talks about the hub project. So when we do that, we can talk about that 60,000.
Yep. So thank you very much, Jason. So on that note, we'll move on to the action sheet. Page 30. Right, hub signage. So the hub project. So we are going to cancel that and put it into savings.
But Madam Chair, just going back to what I suggested is, could we not have, given that there is that money there, could we not have and the money was there not only for the hub, but also if there was any improvements we could do on the village green, could we not at least spend some money on a concept design at this stage of the village green, which does mirror and complement the lodge reserve? So some paving and seating in that area to make it more usable. Just a concept design at this stage, please.
My question would be in that it's a road reserve.
Is there
Any
Wouldn't want to be too big.
chance that sometime in the future coming up, it's going to be required for roading as Hanmer grows?
I don't think that it will stop anybody using. I mean, we already have to do something with the banana house and the paving that is there currently. And I mean, there has been no suggestion at this stage as to what we're going to do with it. I mean, going back to, I think Hamish did say that we probably shouldn't look at making it a reserve just in case for that reason, but I don't think that means we shouldn't. It's the heart of our village, and I don't think it means that we shouldn't at least make it look nice.
It's pretty nice. But anyway, look, just in terms of can that be a separate issue? Like just going through the action sheet, the hub project.
Well, can we just add that we would
Is cancelled.
Yes.
Hub project is cancelled.
Can we add something to the action sheet in terms of just giving a concept design for that? I mean, I can't imagine that it's going to cost us more than a small few $1,000s.
Can we just have that as a separate action though? Like I just don't want to complicate this. So that's a different
separate
discussion. Yeah.
But because it's related to that project, I'm asking that we then, if we remove that from it, that we then have another action for that concept design.
So Alice, you're going to move that we create an action that we look at a concept design. So Dan.
For the village green.
Dan? Yep.
Chair, I'll just, if you are looking to do that, I was just going to suggest that I think you were already on the track of making a resolution around doing it. And also, it would be helpful if you gave us some kind of steer as to when you say a concept design, what do you want on it? Because we can come up with 1,000 different examples and they'll all cost money.
A concept design that mirrors what happens on the Lodge Reserve. So you can see there that there's an area in front of where the statue is that has got some paving and some seating. So I'm not talking about covering the whole village green, but something that looks like that, but is in a suitable place on the village green.
So, Madam Chair, can I suggest if you've got quite a clear idea of what it is you want, maybe Alice just works with one of the officers to work out how much it's going to cost?
Only too happy to.
Bear in mind, it would be an idea to consult with the new community board.
Yeah. I think that's a project for the new community.
But I think that's fine. But I think put it on here and have that discussion, for the new board to have a look at a plan. Good. I mean, it's not going to happen before then anyway, let's face it.
Okay. I think we've got that. Yeah. Okay, okay, item 2, light installation on Agnes Road. Was it arrived? Yay. The pedals haven't yet. Oh, there. So upwards and onwards. Item 3, tidy up. Yep, we're just waiting for the good time to be. No, we're talking about 7.5.
Some more plantings to go in place. Is there a timeline for that, Dan?
It's when the contract is ready and he felt it was a good 900 plant, and I would imagine spring.
Which is
Now.
right round the corner.
Yeah, right around the corner.
1st of September is.
You want that left on there?
Yeah, until they're planted. Item 4, 150 celebrations. I'm going.
Yeah.
5. Heritage Forest, can we record please that the new chair of the Heritage Forest Trust is, it's not Pauline Bennett anymore, it's Lindsay Galloway. I'll send you his contacts. This is another thing. Item number 6, the cenotaph.
That's part of the legacy thing.
Legacy project. Item 7, Forest Network. Great job. Yeah. For the village. Yeah, thank you.
Very much. Not where to work, well, that's what way. It's not about getting something. You see that? Yeah.
You're doing a lot of, you've got a lot on.
Rural neighbours.
You've got a lot on and you're doing well. Okay. Item 8, the Hanmer River Reserve Freedom Camping Area.
I went down and had a look there, and they're actually in the process, our maintenance team guys are in the process of filling all the potholes. And they did say to me that they were thinking that the next step would be to put some chip down and do some grading down that road, but it is really badly potholed. So they're filling them as we speak, truckloads of
Yes.
clay and rocks and
Yeah.
whatever else you need to fill potholes with.
Yes, and thank you, Dan, because Dan organised that as well.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Dan.
Didn't the government just announce a whole lot of extra tourism funding?
Right, right.
I don't know.
And I also think the same thing, just to take mind.
Okay, item 9.
Okay, this is where Jason, if he's there, could help us, please. To do with the hall funding.
Yep, that's right. Well, we had the budget of 25,000 for the repainting of the roof in last year's capital program. As you can see, it hasn't been done. It's been currently on hold for a second opinion. But what I've allowed for now, after corresponding with both Michael and Alice earlier, is making sure that 25,000 has been allowed for as a carry forward in a report that's going to council next week. So yeah, so the funding will stay there.
Great.
Okay, and then further to that, can you just pass those around, please? Further to that, you sent me that information about the underspent budget for maintenance.
Yep, I've got that open as well. If I hear it.
What doesn't get carried over?
Well, that's what I'm asking. What happens to this underspend of 14? It was like 14.8.
So it's a saving.
Yeah, but is the stuff that needs to be done, or because, and why didn't it get done? Because Jason said that 1,900 was spent.
Is it this?
And yet there was a 14,800 budget, and I was just wondering, why did we budget for these things? They seem pretty specific, and we've only spent 1,900. Did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, well, I hope it's on the screen there. You can see yeah, how the 14,800 was broken down, and generally, if operating costs aren't, unless they are, specific, and there is a number of one-off items there that, for whatever reason, wasn't needed to be done or hadn't been done. Generally, we don't carry forward operating expenditure unless there is particularly any items there that do need to be carried forward because we couldn't get them completed. So generally what would happen is that would that savings of 11, 12 grand will just come off your debt. I suppose as we go through the financial year and need to spend more than what the annual budget is, it would be simply funded by clawing back some of that underspend from the previous year.
Okay, so this, I understand what happens to the money if it doesn't get spent, and we wouldn't necessarily carry it forward, but my question is, things like 3,500 for roof repairs, there must have been a reason that was put in the budget. And why didn't it happen, or did it, and did it only cost 1,900, or is someone able to help us with that? You know, there must have been some reason. The other one was repair doors and fix hardware, $3,000. The others are sort of probably smaller amounts, but
I can answer.
I am concerned about the roof because it doesn't look good. Thank you. Yep, Dan, sorry.
So these budgets were put together, or an inspection was carried out on all of our property a few years ago, and we have to put money aside based on what those are. But our general rule is that we do just-in-time maintenance. So if the work doesn't need to be done, as Hamish just points out there, we won't spend the money if it doesn't need it. Now, what we might have is a future issue, but we're only going to spend the money if it needs to be done. I mean, it'd be a fruitless exercise if we just go and do the work just to spend the money, just for the spending the money's sake.
Yeah, I understand that, but I thought 3,500 for roof repairs when the roof doesn't look that flash on the hall, and it didn't get spent. I'm just wondering, should that be carried through? Was there a reason that it wasn't spent, or should we carry it across?
Well, the difficulty for me at the moment is I haven't got visibility of all of our budgets for next year, so I don't know if what we've got planned is sufficient to do what we need to do. So I can't really make that statement, I suppose, until we've got visibility of those budgets.
But at the moment, we're contemplating spending 25 grand replacing the roof. It doesn't make sense to spend 3.5 grand repairing the old roof and then replace it. That's crazy.
Okay.
So you've got 25 grand in the budget, which Chase is carrying forward.
And that's right, that's fine.
So, you know, I wouldn't rush out to spend 3.5 grand replacing repairing.
That's okay. I just want to know whether any of that money needed to be carried across or not. But what we're saying is no, it doesn't. No. Thank you.
Okay, item 15.
It would be good if they could see our budgets this time.
And so 15 we've already discussed. 16. Fourthly, that's going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah, I have contacted them, but of course we're coming up for school holidays now. We're in the middle of it, and they have, or we are all pretty busy at the moment, so it would have to be after that.
Yeah. Okay, and then on page 36, we have our annual review items, none of which is.
The relocation of the disc golf.
Yeah.
Is that on here somewhere?
Yeah, item 12.
Number 12.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. That was my fault, I skipped that.
So, before Christmas, is that a possibility? And can we decide where it's going to be? Because I know some discussion, I think I sent an email to Dan about it, and he commented to me that Becca had, I think I've got this right, that Becca had come up with a design for the woodland pond area, but also I'll just pass that around.
I think Dotton wanted it in Woodland Pond area.
Yeah, and that's right. And then, of course, the other option is Tarndale, and there's two different layouts there that Graham sent through to me, which were the original plan, because but disc golf originally was planned to be in Tarndale. So
It's going to stop those two residents that said no last time,
Yes.
and no again, and it not going there. This is what stopped last time.
as I understand it, it was one in particular, yeah.
The board decided that they wanted to pursue Tarndale. I'm happy to go and speak to each of those residents.
Yeah, well, just they went into the forest camp. They had an area where potentially they could put it and be well used. People going out there, and it's a safe place.
Well, it would transfer a little bit of the liability from the council and it's the forest cap in the event of an accident. I don't think they would take the whole,
Okay.
they would be able to take 4 or 5, but
That was this public event.
that's really interesting.
Dan,
So we're currently been dealing with Vortica, who is the company that did the original plan at the Woodland Reserve.
yeah,
They had some concerns about the plan that went into Brook Dawson because it wasn't designed by experts in this field, of which they suggest they are. And because of the design, they're saying that that's introduced some safety issues. So we are just we've been engaging with them. They're going to come up with a price to design a course in Tarndale, and we'll provide you with that price. That'll be up to you to decide whether or not you're going to do that. Now, the other thing that you agreed last time was that the baskets would come out, but that was pending Mary putting something in the pinky. So we're still waiting for that go button, I suppose.
that went in the pinky.
Okay, all right.
It's been in, and I put it on Facebook as well.
Does Josie know that?
No, I just presume she'd think I've done what I said I was going to do. So I'll contact Josie if you like.
So I can tell her.
The
That's fine.
maintenance thing, no. Yeah, no, I'll contact Josie. I have to contact her anyway. So,
Okay. I can tell her though, but
yeah.
So is there a time roughly when they will come back with a plan for Tarndale, please, Dan?
well, I think we're in the current discussions with them about what the requirements are. So I think a quote is not too far away.
Great. Thank you so much.
I've got a question, Dan. If it goes to Tarndale, you're going to take the chain off the entrance way? Open up the driving road down there and sort of pole off an area, parking area for customers?
Oh, Madam Chair, I have no idea. I mean, it's whatever you decide that will happen down there, I suppose.
I think it probably, if everybody goes and have a look at it, it makes sense to open it up. I think it would drive down there, put wooden poles and give them a parking area for the same thing.
Great, that's what the board wants to do, great.
Yeah.
I think there would be a trigger to it actually getting used. Yeah, much more, as if people can drive down there, take out their picnic.
Because I wonder what it gets used for now,
Good forest.
Dog.
other than people being able to look over it.
Yeah.
And the price for that parking for the Lucas Lane and Heritage Centre, the 4,000.
That's under the garage.
Oh, yeah,
Maybe they could give us a price for
but that as
that as
well.
well.
Yeah,
If that was another 2,000 or 3,000, that would be fantastic.
yeah.
Do recall there was some pushback from residents there,
Yeah, true.
who,
Out of how many? No,
I'm happy to go and speak to those two people.
it's not exactly a rowdy sport, is it?
no.
It's,
Yeah, like they were gonna open the track up and put some parking in there, though, causing a great deal of consternation. That people might actually use the reserve.
It's a shame to use it, wouldn't it?
Might have to remove all the squatting off it.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah, that's another point, isn't it?
Yes,
Let's see it get used by others.
no, I just think it's ideal use for this.
I would love to see Tarndale used now.
Yep.
Shame, it's a lovely area. Okey doke, so that's, sorry, beg your pardon that I missed out 12, so that's everything on the action. And we have our annual review items on the plan matters. You want to bring up anything here? And make the council report as read. It doesn't get to be a golf club. Yeah.
And that, I think, so it's the relocation side, isn't
Okay, thanks, Jess.
it? Meg, Tom, you were there.
Yeah, I just, I wanted to add a footnote to that item there,
Hmm.
but, that the council had approved the expenditure of £50,000 for the plan change and for investigation into that. 2 days after that plan change and that 250,000 was approved, the ANZ gave Hanmer District Council 24 million for this project, of which 5.5 million was for the purchase of the site and the investigation into the plan change and getting the plan change. Bearing in mind that the site cost 3.5 million, that means there's 2 million for the plan change and investigation into the site.
But this is about relocating coastal communities.
Relocating the Embley Beach.
Embley Beach community. Yeah.
So the 250,000 has been superseded voluntarily
Yeah.
by the ANZ loan of 23.55 million.
So is that for that project as well, or?
Yes, yeah, as far as I'm aware, yes, it is.
I hope for the council that's a nice interest-free loan.
Yes, Jason.
0.05%, approximately $12,000 a year, 25 years saving.
That's very good.
12,000 on 25 million, it's peanuts.
Yeah.
My concern about that is that the debt ceiling of the council has gone way through the roof, and I'm not sure that the council will have much debt ceiling for future major projects, but I am sure that Norwich and the council will clarify that down the track.
So just out of curiosity, is there any feedback on that or from Hamish?
As far as the debt ceiling,
How does that work?
the council through setting up a joint CCO with the Paikora District Council on waters, the three waters. About 8% of our current debt is related to the waters, and that debt transferred to the CCO. Council then has debt ceiling available when the event that funding is needed for, a major catastrophe or something like that.
So the
debt will transfer to the.
So the majority of your debt, like the 80%, is going to transfer to the water CCO. And so therefore, this other money that is borrowed is going to be a whole lot less than your debt ceiling anyway.
What are the debt ceilings about 40?
Debt ceiling, Jace, are you there at the moment?
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's dinner time, so if they start barking, don't worry. Sorry, the debt.
What's the debt ceiling at the moment?
Debt ceiling set at 175% of our total revenue, and that's around 130 million at this stage. Now, when the expected about 80% of 80 million of debt relating to the three waters transfers, we immediately drop our debt to revenue ratio down to about 70%. So it's going to be well under that, well under any sort of ceiling that we do have. But at that point, the council will need to just readdress in its own treasury policy what its desired debt ceiling is. Even though at that stage we could still borrow up to perhaps $100 million of debt at that point. There is another piece of work that is going on in the background. The council will be looking to get a credit rating that actually allows us to borrow more if we need. But again, that's going to be dictated by the council's own treasury policy. But there's further benefit in slightly reduced interest rates overall by having the credit rating, and then that flows through to the joint water services CCO as well. So there will be benefit in gaining a credit rating.
So the issue in all of this is not debt ceiling or debt availability to council, it's actually the amount of debt that our communities hold through the water services CCO and the council, and what is affordable. That's the real issue rather than, you know, lines in the sand.
Yep.
It's a debt per household issue. And there's no limitations on that as such, but I mean, what's affordable for people to pay back over time? That's the hard one.
But when I became a councillor 3 years ago, debt was approximately 30 million. With the borrowing on Maskell's Road now, the debt is now approximately 105 million or thereabouts. That's more than 3.5 times in just 3 years. And although it is what is affordable, I personally, my own personal household debt, if my debt had increased at home by 3.5 times, if my mortgage had gone 3.5 times, I would never have done it. I wouldn't have done it, full stop. But
capital assets have gone up by a similar amount of new capital assets put in place.
New water capital assets.
I mean, most of this money has been spent on Three Waters assets. Yeah, not been on operational costs or what they call nice to haves.
We had no choice about the three council either.
You gotta meet the standard.
Then, yeah.
But why did we as a council approve 250,000 expenditure on fees, and 2 days later celebrate that we've got 5.5 million of fees and purchase at the site, which is a 2 million expenditure on fees? That to me is slightly odd that we approved 250,000 and 2 days later it's 2 million. And the council didn't approve that 2 million.
Well, I haven't been to those numbers, Colin, I wasn't there for that meeting. No, but it's our intention that we're spending $250,000 on getting this plan change done and getting the approval.
Yeah.
So you create headroom that you can draw down on, but you don't necessarily draw it down unless you need it. And our plan as communicated to the council is to spend $250,000 to get this thing lodged anyway and into the system so that we can get that plan change done.
And that's an operational matter, is it, not a council? To borrow 25 million, 24 million.
Well, I haven't borrowed 24 or 25 million. I've got the facility to borrow it. So, and as I've stated, trying to get the interest rate on that particular tranche of debt as low as possible through the GSS loan, the Green Social and Sustainability Loan, seemed to be a good thing.
So what you're saying then is that you've only drawn down, did you say 5.5 million or something on that?
Can I make a suggestion? This is council table stuff.
It is, but I mean, we get given this information.
It is interesting. I'm really interested. I'm not interested.
So
Jason,
I don't know whether it's
how much down on that? Drawn down the purchase of the land at about 4.5 million plus the legal fees, etc.
That's right, and there was there's an anticipation of some more costs by the end of this financial year. So, and that is to do up a full subdivision plan. So, that's what that 5.5 million was set at, and that's what's been advanced so far.
So by the time the water is taken over by the joint water group, then 80% of that debt's gone. So we're not anywhere near our debt ceiling, and we're only drawing down as we need that money on the 25 million or whatever it is.
The project is self-funding.
Yeah.
So the money all comes back.
Yeah.
The ratepayers don't end up paying for this project.
Yeah. Okay. But can I just ask then, and I know it's a little bit of an aside, but in relation to the water, and I guess it's a concern for me is what happens with our water now. I know we've asked, but we haven't really had any feedback. At the moment, we have a water committee and we meet a couple of times a year and we get feedback on how our water supplies are going and, you know, whether they fall within or without what they're supposed to. Are we still going to get that kind of feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be suggesting to council that one of the requirements of the CCO, because there'll be a statement of expectations that comes from the council about what the CCO does. And my view is that the CCO needs to set up community liaison groups regarding water, wastewater and stormwater, so that they are regularly meeting with those liaison groups and getting feedback about what they're doing. And
So-
provide those liaison groups with information and as we do with the water liaison.
So pretty similar to what happens now.
No, I think it can be done differently. So it might be that the CCO comes along to community boards in the district and speaks to them about what's going on. They might go to the community committees, but they might set up consumer groups as well, because, you know, to get that real consumer voice in the system, it's a requirement under the Commerce Act that they have that consumer voice in the system, and they need to be able to demonstrate how they do that in quite a formal way.
Okay.
Just
So long as there's something said.
to answer that, page 45, under because it's not an advisory like there for the district water scheme. And it says the Hanmer Springs Community Board may appoint one rep to the council's water liaison committee with the specific things on Hanmer Springs water supply. Yep.
And that's me. I have been going to those meetings and I have at times provided feedback, but the last meeting I didn't go to because I was away in Australia. Sorry.
You'll be on that one.
You're a little on vacation now.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to urgent business. Tom, you best item.
Yeah, this all happened very quickly at the end of last week. After discussions with Sally, I've been talking to Sally over the time about the bins and about the transfer station. Particularly the bins, first of all. 4 of those round bins with the funny sort of lid on outside Monty's down to the log. I mean, they're going to be replaced very soon. They've got the bins ready. They're going to be replaced very soon with big rectangular 120 litre capacity, which is probably about 4 times bigger than they are already. So that'll be done fairly quickly. They've got those ready. And then I think it's in November, the remaining circular bins will all be replaced with rectangular bins. There is a minute drop in the number of bins proposed than we have existing, but the capacity with the rectangular bins being about 4 times the circular bins will be hugely increased. So that is it. I've also been talking to Sally, because it's been a bugbear of mine for a long time. We could actually beautify them by putting posters, panels, something on them on the outside. Reef that have got fantastic old paint posters and paintings on the outside of theirs. So Sally can get guides to put core flute down on 3 sides of the bin, possibly on the door as well. So the door. There's certainly on 3 sides of the bin that can be done relatively cheaply, which she's prepared to do. And I've got Gavin Martin and Marty Grounds, who are going to use historic photographs and will do print that onto core flute, which will drop into the slots, screw it in so they can't be damaged and removed, and that will happen fairly quickly. And again, I believe that Sally has got the funding. She sounds like the funding from the bins. But I think that beautifying them is going to be very, very cheap, because Gavin and Marty will do that next to nothing for that. So we'll be able to do that quite quickly. If that is successful, we could do all the bins, all the rectangular bins in a similar fashion and have historic photos all around town. But they could also be used for advertising if we wanted them to be used for advertising, but we could also theme them. You know, we could have a spring theme or a winter theme or Anzac theme or something like that, or winter festival theme. So I think the potential is there. So I think that will be a really positive to the village. Then on top of that, Alice and I raised the question about the Christmas bins, removing the recycling bins at Christmas, which I don't think is particularly helpful, but I know all the reasons why it is done, and it's unfortunate. So what we agreed to do was the big recycling bin out here is going to be taken away and replaced with an even probably a bin that's probably about 2.5, 3 times the size of that, but it's going to be specifically designed as a real almost a recycling centre. So it will be very crystal clear which rubbish goes into which, so hopefully will reduce contamination. Because it's much bigger, it will be about 3 times the volume of the present bins in here. Chisholm the Chisholm recycling bin is the one that is contaminated the most by the toilets and
Really disgusting.
So
One of the worst in the country.
yeah. So the suggestion there was that replace the recycling bin with 2 new rectangular bins.
Yep.
So it is purely rubbish. So recycling is only going to be here or at the transfer station, and that they're going to replace with a bigger dedicated bottle bank,
Yep.
glass bottle bank, and the transfer station. So that's the what Sally's on to, and hopefully that will all be done at the end of November.
And having rubbish bins right next to the recycling bin as well, so that rubbish will hopefully go straight into the rubbish bin and not into the recycling.
But Sally's been working on this lot now. I think it's going to be a real positive, especially if we can get them decorated. You can have bins in Reefton.
I mean, it's a really specific problem for us here over those times, over the middle of Christmas. So it really would be good to try something different. It's not working what we've got now.
No, having something bigger is really going to help. As long as they can reduce them much, because it is always. And what time they can get to in the morning.
But Earl is doing it 3 times a day at peak times through.
Last year that definitely wasn't.
Yeah, they said one of the problems that is happening is like pizza boxes, because of the shape of the little bins we've got. The pizza boxes get shoved on top, and actually underneath the bins are empty. So that was one of the reasons that they're actually going to change the bins over. They've got 4 at this stage that they're going to change over. They will fit pizza boxes, and they're a much bigger bin inside the opening. So those sort of things will go right down into the bin, but it's still not designed for, people's big household rubbish bags. Yeah. And there is an issue going on with some of the businesses where they're putting their rubbish into the bins as well. They're not clearing it, they'll go along, that our guys will go along, they'll clear the bins, and as soon as the bins are cleared, then some. Yep, they are. So that's just something they're sorting out on the side as well.
Okay. Any other?
But I will also, on your suggestion as well, I will go back to Sally, and because the holiday period from just before Christmas to after the New Year is quite a long one this year. And I will go to Sally and see if we could get the transfer station open a few times between Christmas and New Year, but that is going to be costly. And then we would have to decide who pays for it. But personally speaking,
Paid for it, the Weybridge.
pay for it.
Dan?
I'd just say, Madam Chair, just so that everybody is aware, so The contract we have with the contractor does contemplate that they do a set routine, and when they have to pick up more often to keep the township running, that's an extra cost. So we are just working through at the moment who should be wearing that cost.
Thank you. Okay, Alice, you had something you wanted to bring up?
Just comment on the candidates meeting, that we had, like, for the Westball candidates, there's 5 of them. Tom, of course, Richard Rowe, who most people know used to live here in Hanmer, but that's wow. Dave Hislop, who's a current councillor, Chris Carthy, who's he's been on the fire brigade. He's done an awful lot of community stuff, but he's from Rotherham Way. And Chris, what was the other guy's name? Yes, Chris Scarlett. Oh, okay, right. So, and it was quite an interesting meeting. It got quite fiery at times, but we didn't get that many people there. I think there was only about 10, and I think the same thing happened in Culverden. There wasn't a huge interest. But yeah, no, it was really interesting listening to all these different views on different questions, and I think those who did come along actually really enjoyed it. So,
Oh, thanks for that.
we can mention that. And then the only other thing that I was going to talk about was Jason, and we've already covered that. So with the carryovers.
Radio.
So I do have a message from Mari that I would like to read if that's possible. And I'll say a few words from there at the end. So right.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So again, Mari's sincerest apologies for not being able to attend today, because she would have liked to be here for your fun meeting work with Mary. And this is what Mari has said. Mary, over a number of years, Mary time has become Mary. Reword that. Over a number of years, Mary has been a committed member both on Hanmer Springs Community Board and during her time as a councillor. Mary is a committed person who is keen to make a difference to her community. Thank you for your kindness, your commitment, and support. It will be missed, and you will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Michael, Rural District Council has been truly fortunate to have someone like Michael. His presence, support, and advocacy for Hanmer Springs and all things Gurunui. It has been appreciated by many over the years. Michael first entered local government as a community board member in 2000 and has been on the board ever since, and as a member and as the chairperson and as the Gurunui District Councillor. Michael was on the council from 2004 to 2013, being deputy mayor during that time. He has also been a member and chair of the Gurunui Tourism Board during that time. Michael, we wish you all the very best in your retirement. Your commitment to your various roles in local government has been exceptional. Your wisdom and knowledge will be a loss to the community. We wish you both well, and thank you again for your commitment to the district.
No,
And on that note, I'll have the next words. Okay.
yeah.
You've been a great advisor and a great support and a great compliment. I've enjoyed it tremendously working with you and alongside you, so thank you very much. Michael, your wisdom and your knowledge has been invaluable, particularly as a first timer to come along here and you suddenly pulling out dates and history and records and knowing something that happened 20 years ago with incredible detail, that you can just recollect that without having to go through the files and records and everything. So thank you for that. Again, I've enjoyed working alongside you with that. And thank you very much for everything you've done. I've really enjoyed working with you both. That's personal.
And Mary, I want to say a couple of things as well. So thanks to you and Michael, but also thanks to all of you, the work that you do on the community board here. It's never straightforward. There's always a lot of ins and outs and things to work through, but certainly appreciate the work that you've all done in this last training. And for those of you that are returning, thank you very much. And for those that aren't, good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, a few other little community projects that I want to get my hands into that, so I'm not only stepping back from this, but stepping back from my hands-on role in my business. Had a pretty major wake-up call this year and, so, but, you know, I've got a couple of passion projects in the village that I want to throw myself into. So I'm not going anywhere.
No, well, we're going to continue working together on
Yeah.
things like that network and the like too. But as for Michael, well, gosh, we've been together for a long time.
Yeah,
I think I might have even encouraged you to come onto the council at the time.
you may well have, yeah. No, I appreciate these kind words and they do go a long way back. I just made a note that some of you will remember Roger Key, Professor Roger Key, and he and one or two others of us actually set up the track network way back in that time. The closing of Queen Mary and the difficulty that we went through there. Firstly, the council deciding to take over a proportion of it was quite a big statement in itself. But given that it was right in the middle of town, we needed to be having some say in how it got disposed of, and that has worked through with Ngāi Tahu, and we've now got a centre of town that hopefully we can make good use of in the future. The other person I remember well is Robert Crawford, who had many ways of influencing people. But he, as a former officer or health person in charge, he had a strong feeling for Queen Mary. And he, as you'll remember, a few of us got together as a group and tried to stop the closing of it. And then finally, we had people who had been members of Queen Mary going through their rehabilitation, who came back into our meeting, and the feeling that came out of that was quite phenomenal. As to the benefit that they had got from their rehabilitation through Queen Mary. The thermal pools, we've been involved in different ways, but particularly through the committee, and as Alice will know, and Mary has been quite a strong committee right throughout for the pools that has worked well for the council and for all our visitors. And I mentioned Graham Abbott because I think he came somewhat after we were involved in the Hanmer, but with what he did through the pools and his way he managed to bring it all together from an operational point of view, I think we owed a lot to Graham in the time that he was there. And generally, in going back to council, I think Mari has done a great job, and her job as mayor. I've been involved with the two others, Gary Jackson and Winton Dowie, thank you. And they've had different ways of doing things. And Hamish has been very much involved with both of those. I think that's right. So that was something that we were going through different eras of what local council was about then, and how Huranui is making its own way through what is really a rural district, and Hanmer Springs in particular, which has developed quite a big tourist position over that period of time. And I'd also like to thank Judith Batchelor, who's been involved over a long number of years. And it's good that we can now see the Soldiers Block actually having some purpose and being used, because I know that she's been pushing that for many years, and with the direction that it has to go in now, I thought that she's been right behind that. And just to Alice and Chris, who've been, and Mary on this board for quite some time, we've seen a few changes and many challenges, I might say. Tom has come on more recently, but he's picked up the council role very effectively, and I think you've done extremely well in the 3 years that I've known you. And long may it continue. And we've also got Stacey on board now too, so hopefully.
Not for long. No more.
Let's entertain a project, so just for now, I can't do it
Okay.
now, but.
Oh, there's an election next, what, February?
Well, maybe not that quickly, Alice, because it's the end of the 9-year celebration, keep me in the loop, I want to be back to help you finish that.
So if I could just finish by saying, I think it's 31 years I've been here now, and I very much appreciate being very much involved in Hanmer, not only from community board, but also the development of properties and other things. And as a community, it's something that's quite special, and we all know one another, or we did up until recently. But having now living in Christchurch, and I do have other interests there now, so I just want to look back and let you know how much I appreciate your company. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, we've all had moments, Mike, but on the whole, I'd say it's pretty good.
You'll carry it on, Alice.
It is a long time, isn't it? Because I think I first came on the community board in 1992.
Oh, wait.
It's scary, isn't it?
It's so scary.
1992, and I think I first went on the council in 97, something like that. So, and I was on there for 7 years. So, yeah. And then I still stayed on the community board for another couple of terms after that. Had a break for a few years and came back. But yeah, no, we have worked together for a long time.
Yeah, we have, yeah. And didn't always see the same point of view.
Well, it doesn't matter, we got there.
Well, Michael, my fondest memory is the first track network group meeting, which we had done at the old dock centre.
Yes.
And one of the things I remember is that, so when 20 years ago, when I first came to Hanmer and bought the powerhouse, we used to give 30 cents from every single coffee that we sold to the mountain bike club, because my husband was a mountain biker back then, to make trips. And I bought a horse because I'd been a rider since before I could walk, and one of the reasons I came up country. And then also the mountain bikers were saying, well, you're not allowed in the heritage forest because they're our treks. That's like, now we sell about 300 coffees a day. And that's when everyone was elbowing each other, and it got quite nasty there for a while. And Michael chaired that first meeting, and you had to get quite grumpy sometimes. But you pulled everything together, and that was the start of something that's been amazing for him. And I really thank you for that, because it is one of the 4 main pillars of tourism here now. We've got trails, we've got golf, and we've got out the back, and it's really important. But yeah, it's said by all. I'll go put the kettle on it. Oh yes, I need to officially close the meeting. Perfect. At
Time.
3:27.
Yeah. End of 3 years.
Thank you, Hamish.